Hello, my name is Danielle. Basically, this is round 2 of me trying to record my testimony, and last time I left super anxious and just like thrown off, and I ended up with the tattoo. So I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Basically, I just want to share my story of God's grace in my life. It's His story, like I said. So if I refer to it as my story, like it's a story that He's given to me to glorify Him. I've been through a lot, just like most people, and looking back, basically I've learned something from every part of my life that has made me who I am, and hopefully in sharing this, like, even if just one person connects with part of my story, it's worth it. So this isn't something I would do on my own. It's definitely not to get pity or glorify, where I've come from, or any of my past, but it's what's brought me to where I am. So just don't hesitate to reach out. Like, if He's using me to speak and you're feeling something and you have questions or whatever, like, don't hesitate, because that's what this is for. I have notes down here because I got really caught up last time. It's really hard to remember details and not get caught up. So if you see me looking down, I had to write lots of notes. If anyone's watching this who knew me before I was a Christian, y'all are maybe wondering, what's all this Jesus stuff about from this girl who was anything but a Christian. So hopefully this will clear some of that up and just explain where I'm at now, what He's done in my life, and it's pretty crazy. So anyone who knew me before, I'd love to see you and talk, because things are different. Anyways, it's definitely, for whatever reason, it's nerve-wracking to just tell your story. It's very vulnerable. I'm worried about hurting other people's feelings or whatever who are in my story, but it's just all part of it. So the whole purpose in this is just to give glory and praise to everything that seemed broken and is now redeemed in God. So all that to say, I'll get into the details, but I'm a Christian. I am fully proclaimed Christian. I believe in God. I believe that Jesus Christ died for all of our sins, past, present, future. I believe that He's coming back. I believe in the entire Bible. It's the Word of God, and that's truth. And it's something that there just aren't words to explain the way that God can transform it. You have to step out in faith and make that decision, which is what I did. I didn't really have beliefs before, and I'll get into the details, but eventually enough happened in my life, it just brought me to my knees, and I was like, okay, what's this Jesus thing all about? And I just slowly, I want to make it clear there was no lightning bolt moment all of a sudden, boom, she's Christian, but it is that instantaneous though. When you pray, profess your faith, put your faith in Christ, and you tell Him that, and you ask Him to change you, that is a defining moment. But you may not feel this lightning bolt crazy moment. I didn't feel anything. I just did it. I stepped out in faith and said, all right, God, here I am. I'm yours. Do what you want with me. And just things start changing. That's the only way to really explain it until you live it. But it's very real. It's the most real thing I've ever experienced, and it's a relationship. It took time. I can say that I'm sold out in love with the Lord now. It's been about a year since I started my walk, and it takes about that long. It takes going through some trials, and it's not all just roses and fairy tales. It's you're saved, but it's not just it's not you're just rescued from your old life and then everything's perfect from there on out. And it's hard, and it takes discipline, and it's just worth it though. Everything that you put into it, He gives back tenfold, and He uses you. Your life becomes about glorifying Him, and it becomes about other people. I used to just be so selfish, and I didn't think that I was, but everything innately as humans we're selfish, and just giving that to him literally daily. It has to be a daily thing, at least for me. I have to start in the word, praying like, still yours today, God, like use me again today. And if I don't, I become my old self, just selfish. Like I'm still fighting those old things as they come back up, and it's a different struggle every day sometimes. But just combating that with truth, and so I still have struggles every day, and I have to literally daily submit. Just give him control. Basically, I had the same struggles that I always had. My flesh still fights like anxiety and depression and lust and like all of these things that I used to deal with, that I would either white knuckle through and be like, I don't need that, or frankly, I didn't believe the things I believe now, so I just kind of fell into them. I let those things rule my life, and I became a slave to my own sin. It's the way I see it now. Like, these things sound crazy. It's crazy that I'm saying them, because I would have thought like, oh, it's just like Christianese, like they're a bunch of hypocrites, whatever. Like, I had no interest in anything religion, anything Christian, and now like this is legitimately what I believe. Like, I was a slave to things that hurt me, and now by the grace of God I'm saved from that, and I get his strength to overcome these things. I get his truth, just through the word and through the people that he's put in my life to love me like I've never experienced before in my life. I've never had friends like this, because they're all full of the Lord. It's the Lord's love, and it's just different. Like I said, there's not really a way to explain it, but he is real. He's risen. He's alive. Like, he's here. And I don't know. Like I said, I can't believe that I'm saying that, but it's what I believe now. So before I get into my story, I wanted to cover all that just in case no one wants to sit here for an hour and listen to me go into detail, but that's like the gist of it. That's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going, and that's the purpose of the rest of my life. So I would just encourage anyone who's on the fence to take the leap of faith, and all you have to do is pray and just give yourself to him like he does the rest. And you just start following his word, get to know him, build that relationship, because it is a relationship. It's not, like I said, it's not a lightning bolt. It's giving your life to him every day and asking him to change you from the inside out. Change my heart, God. I want to follow you. Like, show me what that means. And he can do anything with that. Like, let him take control. Give him the reins. There's a song called Take Over by Shane and Shane. If you don't know how to pray that prayer, sing that song. I sang it every day for weeks at the beginning of my walk. So like I said, any questions, like, I'd be happy to answer questions about my story if you have them, or if you just like feel led to reach out to me. I would love, like, that is literally the fullness of joy for Christians, is to share our beliefs and share the good news and how God's redeemed our lives. So just don't hesitate. If God's putting it on your heart, like, reach out. I would love to talk to you. I would love to connect you with other people as well. So with that being said, I'm just going to get into kind of my story, what happened to me and what led me to this point of surrendering my life to Christ. So I was born in Phoenix in 1992, and we lived there for all of 3 months, so I don't remember it at all. And then I have moved 27 times since then. I went to 11 schools, which begs the question, are you a military brat? I used to always respond, no, just brat. But I couldn't really tell you exactly the reason for every move, but it was kind of different stuff. My parents weren't really together, even when they were married, and so we would often live in different cities and just lots of leased homes, and every time a lease would end, we'd move. My mom switched careers and we moved. My dad was in the car business, so we moved a lot for that. And then once they finally split, when I was 10, we just were leasing house after house. And honestly, we were pretty much just always running or looking for joy, I think, is what it ultimately comes down to. And I realize that now because I realized the pattern in myself, but I think that was definitely part of it on all of our parts. We were like just hoping we had hope in the next location. We had hope in the future, because things always seemed just we were always so discontent where we were at and so miserable, and like nothing ever went right. And so we were so stuck in that the only way that we found happiness is thinking ahead. And so that pattern continued through my life. So now I recognize that I think that was what was happening in my mom's heart, and we just kind of fell into that. And we ended up running, because basically, I don't mean running like in a dramatic way, but we, when things go wrong, the easiest thing to do is like, oh, I'll just start over. And so I have this pattern through my entire life, and now is the first time I've ever had meaningful relationships and friendships that I put work into, and we resolve conflict, and like, it's messy and it's hard and it's scary, but it's so worth it to have those relationships. But up until just this past year, I didn't have that. Like, my identity pretty much was the new kid. I was like this shiny new toy that everyone wanted to meet and then kind of leave there. And so I was consistently trying to fit into different groups and find like basically the cool kids at every school, because like I didn't want to get in the nerdy group and then be stuck there and then get known that way, like all these things that don't matter at all but seemed so real. And every single year I had to go through this, just basically forming a new identity everywhere I went. And until this past year, I never formed my own. I had no idea who I was, where I was going, what I wanted. Even really like my morals and my beliefs, like all of it was so easily manipulated because I had no foundation whatsoever. I didn't have family pouring into me. I didn't have any friendships. Like it was just me, really. Like I had my mom the whole time, but she was kind of like doing her own thing at that time. We kind of joke now that we like grew up together. We almost went through like dating and like everything together, and now we're really close. We're best friends, but it was definitely not always that way. So basically for 22 years, I felt alone. Like, bottom line, I never wanted to say that, and I'd always like put on this front like everything was good. I made good grades, I had friends, but I knew in my heart like this isn't real. These aren't real friends. Like, we're just gonna leave anyways. Anytime something would go wrong, I'd be like, screw you, like we're not friends anymore. Because I would pour so much into like a friendship. I wanted every friend or every relationship to like be my everything. So when I was 15 is when the pattern of dating started. Basically realized that the easiest way to get that attention and acceptance was through guys. And all of this, like, I realize it and could put it into words now, but it really was just like what was happening at the time. So I realized I can get attention from guys, and I use that to my advantage, and I started dating. Well, kind of just started hooking up first, and then started dating at 16. But basically what it came down to is I found my entire identity in how I looked. I was constantly obsessed with how I looked, and not in like a I'm so hot kind of way, but constantly comparing to other girls and like where I was lacking. And I mean, literally never stopped thinking about it. And I was so insecure and so self-conscious because of it that it was like paralyzing. And it was only once I got that, certain attention that I would stop thinking about it. I don't know. So basically at 15, I started just going to parties and staying out all night and drinking and meeting guys like that. And then when I was 16, I got into a relationship, which was 2 years. And I skipped an important part. So amongst all this moving, I told you like my mom is dating. So when I was in 8th grade, my mom met a guy named Paul, and basically up to this point, not much of a father figure. My dad's amazing, but he's a lot older than my mom, and he's just wasn't around, not always by choice, but because of work and then the divorce. Like, I just didn't have that consistent father figure in my life. And then my brother and I kind of just like fought, didn't really have a relationship. We're kind of very slowly starting to fix that, hopefully, but just no consistency whatsoever, but particularly that male figure was never there. And then Paul really stepped in and filled that role. So him and my mom were dating for a while. He was around a lot. Eventually I accepted. At first I was really jealous, like didn't like that my mom was giving, her attention to him, and that was hard. But eventually we let him in, and he really filled that role well. We ended up all moving. My brother, my mom, and me moved with Paul to Florida, and I went to another new school. And Paul just filled that father role. He stepped between where my mom and I had issues, and really, like, he just loved me. He loved me in a way that I hadn't been yet. So he showed me what that means, what it means to just genuinely care about someone and want to make them feel better instead of worse. So he changed the relationship for my mom and I. There was definitely some ups and downs, but that's where it started, where he stepped in and was like, this is not okay. Like, this is your daughter. You need to treat her right. And I hate to say any of that now because my mom's amazing. She does so much for me, and she's a different person now too. But at the time it was hard. We were both going through so much, so different, and we really didn't understand each other. So anyways, Paul stepped in. So we lived with him for 6 months, and then he took his own life right after Christmas that year, just kind of out of nowhere. So obviously we kind of just swept it under the rug like everything else and kept moving on with life, and that's why it still makes me cry, because it was such a big role was filled and then just taken from me, and I never knew why. Obviously I blamed myself, and it's funny because thinking back, I remember praying one time when I was in high school. That was the only time I had really prayed since I was a kid, which I was like kind of raised Catholic. I skipped that part. I was raised Catholic until I had the choice not to be, basically, and then it was like none of that, and just did my own thing. But I prayed when I was in high school just for Paul, just hoping. I still don't really know what I believe about whether someone commits suicide, if they have any chance of going to heaven. I don't know that he was saved to begin with, so that's hard now knowing that, but at the time I was just praying and just crying out, just hoping that he had like a chance in heaven or whatever. I didn't even know what I believed, but that was oh my gosh, that was what I was saying. So I had totally forgot that happened until I was like thinking about this, but right there. So after Paul passed away, we moved back, and I finished out 8th grade, and we went back to South Lake, which was kind of awkward because everyone like knew that I left and then knew that I was back, but not very many people knew why. So I didn't really share it with anyone. I kind of just like tried to move on with my life. I just didn't think that anyone would really understand what happened, and I didn't want to burden anyone else with like what I'd been through, and I didn't want pity, and I didn't want people to I just wanted to be treated like myself. So I didn't really tell anyone, but I was burying all these like struggles, and basically I just didn't feel worthy of people, like they would even care if they did know, but if they did, I didn't want, like, it was just this internal struggle, and I just ultimately like pushed everything down and moved forward, and that led to, basically I just felt misunderstood. Like no one really knew my story, no one knew where I came from, no one knew what I had just been through. And so it led to feeling misunderstood and even more alone than before, but also this sense of like victimization kind of started that I now realize was a pattern for me. Like I kind of felt like everything just happened to me and I had no control, and I was a kid, so in a way that's the case, or in a sense that's the case, but so that all kind of added up and led to me seeking attention from guys. So I just realized that was the quickest way to get it, and like the bottom line of everything is everyone wants to be fully known, understood, and loved anyways, and that's only really found in the Lord, but I was trying to find that in other people, so dating relationships are pretty much where I was seeking that. So basically whatever guy I was dating, my life kind of just automatically started revolving around them, because I didn't have my own identity. I didn't have my own life built. I was like, cool, I'll just jump on with you and we'll do this thing. And so I I always thought we were like getting married, and my whole life was revolving around whatever this guy was. So the heartbreak when that ended was just like devastating. So I like, basically I wanted these guys to like fix me, to like really understand me first, but I didn't even understand myself. So I would like desperately want them to know me, understand me, like fix me, make me feel better, like love me. But at the same time, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing, what this is. And I was pushing and pushing because I didn't trust anyone. So I like wanted them to fight for me and love me. But meanwhile, I was like, I don't trust you. And so I'm going to keep pushing you the other direction. And so basically I was just terrified from this constant loss. I lost everything that ever mattered to me, just constantly. And so part of that was victimizing, and part of that was like, that was my reality. And so I was just like living in fear of loss, living in fear of abandonment, fear of being just disappointed over and over again, and that no one ever like cared or loved me enough to stick around. And so I was just like convinced that no one would ever stay. And so as desperately as I wanted them to, I knew that they wouldn't, and I'd push. Which ultimately, that's the truth. Like, no human is forever. You never know what's going to happen. Like, people are going to disappoint you. People are going to pass away. Like, people are going to go through their own struggles. And so putting your hope in people is just asking for disappointment. Like, a relationship has to go two ways, and people can lift you up or they can pull you down. And I just was constantly in these relationships that were pulling me down, and I didn't realize it at the time, obviously. But so I dated a guy for 2 years, from 16 to 18. Right after we broke up, really long story, and I won't get into details just out of like respect for, you know, people involved. I won't get into a lot of details in any of these, but he ended up having some mental struggles as well. And so between what had happened with Paul, who was pretty much the first guy, like, I loved my dad, he's my dad, I love him to death, but Paul was just this like fatherly love, and then gone because of a mental illness. He disappeared. And then this guy that I dated, it wasn't the same struggle, but it just like overnight there was this different person, really, like truly different person. I wish I could get into it, because it's still just like, the reason it even matters to say that is basically at this point I felt like, one, everyone leaves, but two, everything I touch and love, like, not only leaves, but like in this dramatic like death, or what seemed like a death. Like, the person that I knew and loved was not there anymore. And he is now. He's a great guy. Like, I wish him all the best forever. He's amazing. But he was just battling. I mean, he had a struggle that he was fighting, and I don't know, the way that it affected me is what's important here. So like, I just felt so confused, and so like, just why? Like, why does everything I touch break? And instead of like dealing with any of that, because I had no resources, I had no way, like, I didn't have the Lord, I didn't have like parents to really talk to, and I was just like, I guess this is just life. And I jumped immediately into another relationship, which lasted from that point, like my senior year of high school, basically all the way through college, off and on. And I only just recently like fully cut all ties with that. Ended up just very quickly falling for this other guy, the same pattern, just like, I had to let go of all that, I don't want to deal with it, so here's all my junk, like, fix me, make me better, love me anyways. So jumped into that like full force. We fell in love like real quick, and got into a lot of drugs. And I shouldn't say a lot of drugs, that was the first time that I had just gotten into that like world, even really knew what it was. And I was doing it all basically for the approval of this guy, like wanting to be what he wanted me to be. So by God's grace, like, I don't like drugs. I don't like any of them. I didn't like the experience with any of them, but it really messes with your head. And so it was this different kind of love, and like level of love and understanding that I didn't know how to break free from that. So we went through just a really unhealthy cycle of just like hate and love and cheating and all kinds of just junk that came with that. And then basically just all the, the sexual sin that comes with what I, there was a lot of other, shorter relationships kind of in the middle of all that, because he and I were so off and on that I would pretty much date someone every time in between. I've had probably 10 or 12 boyfriends, and I'm 23, so too many. And so just all of that sin, God forgives, and he's gracious, and he's good, and, grace abounds there, but we're still human, and we still have those ties, so that's, something I have to still work through, and there are natural consequences for every sin, I believe. I don't think it's a punishment, but when you do something, there's an effect that it has on you that you can't take back, so there's still a lot from all that I have to work through. And then on top of, there was drugs, there was drinking, there was inappropriate relationships, just all the way from 15 until, this past year. And now I've repented, I've asked for forgiveness, I'm saving myself for marriage, which there have been mistakes in this past year, and I've learned from those as well, and now I'm, deeply convicted. That bond is meant for a husband and a wife, and there's a reason for that. I won't get into all those details, but basically I used alcohol, and I said I experimented with some other drugs, but the one I was prescribed Xanax, so I dealt with a lot of anxiety. I still have to fight. That's probably my biggest struggle that's totally out of my control, and that was pretty much how I came to know the Lord as deeply and as quickly as I did, is just the peace. It says in the Bible, it's a peace that surpasses understanding. He's brought me a peace that I never experienced before. Just even for no reason. Even in the midst of chaos, there's a peace in just knowing that he's in control. And that's what my tattoo's about. It says rest in the cross, or the T is a cross, so it's rest in the Lord, and just know that he's in control. That's it. Just knowing that means all of this that's going on, I can trust that he's in control of it. It's for his good. Ultimately it's for his good. That doesn't necessarily mean for the best what I want, but it's for his best and for his glory. I could get into that forever, but basically through all of that, learning that my identity can't be found in people. So anyways, I graduate college. This whole thing went on through college, lots of, drinking, everything, trying to, basically I never felt like I fit in still. I still didn't have my identity until this past year. So I was still just I guess I'll do this because everyone else is doing it, but it doesn't really feel I don't know. I feel like I've always just been a little bit convicted about all the things I was doing. It didn't ever feel like me. It felt like just trying to fill a void, really, is what it was. So I graduated college. I worked. I got my degree in education, and I ended up going back into nannying when I graduated. So I nannied for a pretty wealthy family in Highland Park, and just kind of started living that Dallas lifestyle. I made pretty good money, and then I got to live in their house even when they weren't home, and just being around that all the time made it seem very important, and I just kind of became part of their family, and I started living that life, and still just didn't feel, like me. And then I met another guy, started dating him. It got really serious way too fast, and just through a lot of experiences with him, he just really continued to knock me down. He basically was emotionally abusive, and really just made me hate myself even more than I kind of already did at that point when I met him. So I let him build my identity in him, our future and us getting married and all this stuff. And then he completely made me feel without him I was completely worthless. I was just damaged, and I really was, but he made me feel that way and told me those things, verbalized, you're nothing, you're all the things that I already believed about myself. He confirmed. So I wanted to get away from that, but I literally didn't know how, because I really did feel that way. I felt like without him I was nothing and I was hopeless. So there's a lot to that, but the like highlights are us just up and down in another mental breakdown, and he threatened suicide, which, knowing what I had been through, that was like ultimately kind of the end of things. But had me on the phone for hours saying he was going to kill himself, and I just like totally, I kind of just shut down and like dealt with it and made sure he was okay. And then I was like, I don't even know. We tried to fix things after that, like a couple months later, and we went and like saw a counselor and all this stuff, and somehow, I'd have to think about the timeline, somehow I ended up in jail one night. We were fighting, and there was like, I had been drinking, and there was some like pushing and all this, and the cops ended up getting called twice. Eventually, I think they were just tired of dealing with us, took me to jail. I really don't even remember the timeline of all this. I just like suppressed a lot, but we tried to fix things again after that, just with the manipulation. I legitimately thought like I was nothing. So we kept trying to fix things, and ultimately the reason I'm talking so much about this is because ultimately it's what got me to church. It's what, like, one time when we were broken up, I ended up at Watermark Community Church at their young adult service on a Tuesday night, not knowing it's called the Porch. I thought I was going out to eat with some people. I ended up in church, and God's just funny. He can work through that. Like, I didn't want to be in church. I wasn't like mad about it, but I was kind of just like, oh, this is gonna be like an hour. I was kind of watching the time. I heard the story of the prodigal son, which is kind of my story now. I didn't even realize it at the time, how just perfect that message was. But a couple weeks later, this guy and I tried to work it out again, and we decided, let's start going to church. So we ended up at Watermark on Sundays, and basically I heard Matt Chandler give his testimony once. Look up Matt Chandler. He's a great speaker of truth, very clear truth. He said something about, like, he went to church and he was like, I don't really agree with this. I don't really like that. It's kind of weird that he did that. But then his friend would be like, so do you want to go back? And he'd be like, yeah. So I was kind of there. I was taking notes, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever agree with that, but whatever. I just kept going back. Like, now I know it was the Lord, but at that time I was just like, I don't know. I just kind of want to be there. It kind of just makes me feel good. And then I had quit that job. The job was there was a lot there. The job was very damaging as well. And so church every week, and I quit my job, went back to my mom's, and I was literally just reading the Bible every day. I read a book called A Case for Christ. It's a really good place to start, very short, quick read. And then Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis, and a book called The Language of God, which was written by Francis Collins, who helped with like the Human Genome Project, like this brilliant scientist who is a believer and explains his beliefs like scientifically. And then C.S. Lewis explains it kind of from a moral standpoint and like philosophical standpoint. And then I took all of that, and then the Word of God. I was literally started in Genesis. I just started reading the Bible because I was like, why not? And I was watching a bunch of sermons, and I was just learning. I was kind of just learning what Christianity was, and like, can I really get into this? But I was committed to it. Like, I wanted it. I longed for, like, I want that. I just don't know how people do it. So I was kind of just trying, and eventually came to a point where I was like, I didn't really even feel like if I wanted to, I could turn back. And that's kind of how God works, is once you're saved, you can't ever go back without feeling convicted and feeling the Spirit like telling you it's not right. So I did what I encouraged you guys to do at the beginning and just prayed that prayer, like, God, I don't really know exactly what I believe, but I pray that you would show me who you are, that you would, I'm giving myself to you, Lord, like, do what you will with me. I surrender. It's ultimately like my prayer, and things just started changing. I did the regeneration ministry at Watermark, which is just a healing. It can be for it gets kind of a rap for being, because it's a 12-step program, which if you struggle with alcoholism, it's a great program for that. But anything, literally everyone could do it, because we all have struggles. But it kind of like led my walk. it teaches you like who God is and where grace abounds, and the thing you like learn all about yourself and your struggles and just how to give all of that to the Lord. So that was just huge. I actually just graduated that a couple weeks ago, and he's just, look at my notes, make sure I covered everything. I basically went from, over time, like it takes God's people loving on you. That's like the biggest thing that I could say really impacted me. And then just the Lord working and like praying every day that he would change my heart and make it more like his, show me what he wants. And I just can't explain, like, it's a peace and a joy that I had never experienced. I had never experienced a moment of rest or peace. I lived in this constant state of anxiousness, kind of just like a little bit of hope in the future, like it's got to get better than this. And I think I finally hit a wall in that last relationship of, I finally had graduated college, I had a job, I thought it was a stable job, just kind of realizing like I'm an adult, this is my life, like this is it. And I wasn't happy there. Like I had been depressed before, but this was just like this constant state of anxiety, depression, and it all just like, not like magically, but it all just started fading, and I realized what was really important, and like we're only here for this much time and then in heaven. So, and I didn't really talk about that, so I don't want to like weird anyone out, but it slowly started to click. Someone explained to me that I was waiting for that lightning bolt moment that I hear about, and someone explained to me like that's not, usually how it works. It's a relationship and you have to build it. Like, you're the other half of that relationship. God can do anything, but we're humans and we have free will, and he gave us that. So we have to choose to follow him. And when we do that, what he can do with that choice is huge. Like, that's all him, but we have to daily pick up our cross and like just lay our life down. Like, God, my wants, my desires, like it's all yours. Like, do every day, do what you want. Like, I surrender to your will, and it's constant, and it, just the peace that brings and the joy that it brings to live that out, it's something I wish I could explain, but I can't. I've recently decided to basically fast from, I like don't cuss anymore. I like intentionally stopped cussing, and it makes it like now when I hear people do it, I'm like, ugh. It's like weird little things like that make a big difference. I don't listen to any secular music anymore. I only listen to worship music, sometimes like Christian rap when I work out, which it just all makes me laugh because this is so, I was like this little like wannabe hood rat, like I cussed like every other word, I rapped all the time, like thought I was so cool. And now I'm just like in this constant state, constant prayer, and just letting God lead me. And like I said, I still struggle. I'm not going to be perfect. I never will be. And the struggles are more real some days than others. Sometimes it's like floating on this God high and it's awesome. But then there's days where it's like all of a sudden I feel like I want to go do all the things I used to do. Like I want to drink. I want my Xanax. Like I want everything I used to have. I want a relationship. I like lust hardcore. Like I want that again. And I just have to constantly remind myself of truth, and it's extremely rewarding to do that. Like God will not disappoint. Like he's God. So basically that's my life now, is just trying my best every day to follow him and surrender to his will, and it's completely changed my heart. I keep I'm looking for words. There aren't. Like I have hope now, and I never did before. I have peace. I have joy. Like I am so insanely blessed. Like I have the best life, and it's not any different than my life was before when I thought I had the worst life. But it's just this new perspective that comes with truly believing that there is a God who controls all of this and who controls our paths, and just choosing to walk with him. It's literally the best choice. Like, that's such an understatement. It's the best choice I ever made, but I am a new person, and the Bible like says that you're new, you're redeemed, like the old has passed away, behold the new has come. And it's literally, I'm a different person. That's why all this stuff is so like weird and hard to talk about, because it doesn't feel like it was even me. It was this like old version of me that sometimes still shows up and comes knocking and wants to be let out. But I know the pain and the destruction that comes with those choices, and I just surround myself with truth and prayer. And I'm gonna wrap this up, I guess. Basically, God's awesome. You should do what I did, and just, if anyone's on the fence, like I said, if anyone wants more, has questions, like I have amazing resources I'd love to point you to. I would love to talk to you. But can you forgive me for saying so much? This is hard. It's hard to just talk about yourself for a long time. I hate talking about myself, but I love to talk about God. I really do. And he's amazing. And it used to be very uncomfortable because I was still so unsure, but he's so good. And he already loves you, if you don't know that. And if you're ready to, I struggle to say this because it's not just a feeling. It's not just this like, I'm saved and everything's perfect now. Like, it is a choice to walk with him daily, to do things that you don't want to do. But there is a joy that comes with it that I've never experienced following my own ways and my own desires. So I just encourage you to pray that prayer if you're thinking about it. If you're on the fence, give him a chance. Like I said, God's awesome. He can do anything with that. You do have the free will and you have that choice. I'll probably put like a list of the books that I read, so you don't have to go through and listen and find them. I'll write them down. And it's funny that I've been trying to wrap this up for the past 5 minutes, and I'm never good at saying goodbye. So it's like, I don't know, it's a weird thing about me that I'm still figuring out. But anyone who has taken the time to listen up to this point, it feels like it's been about 6 hours. Hopefully it's only been like 1 or less, but thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope that, if you connected with any part of it, that's awesome. And God is good, because it's all him. I would never do this for myself. So yeah, thanks for watching. A lot of my really good friends are going to be recording theirs as well. So just keep checking out God's amazing stories, even if you're already saved and you're just like, you like to hear people's testimonies. Here they are. Thank you, Clay, for following God's calling for you and putting this all out there. I just pray that this, even if it's one life that it touches, that's amazing. But I just pray for this new ministry, this developing ministry, that it grows and expands, and it opens doors for us to reach people who are hurting, people who need to hear the love of God. So I'll end it with that.